Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Mediator. I've got the welcome mat out and the top 8 stories ready and locked and loaded, ready to go. Welcome to the show. This is a show where I give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it throughout the week, so you can go through your week being informed and understanding what's happening. The top 8. This is a show where I navigate the news just for you, giving you some insight. If you want to contribute in any way during the show, if you want to check out the stories that almost made it into the top 8, or you want to check the stories that did make it to the top 8, you want to do your own research, all you have to do is visit www.method, the number 8inc.com, and the shows are posted in our Twitter. Well, the show, not only just the show, but the stories are posted in our Twitter feed. The show is usually posted throughout the week as I upload it and edit and things like that. So if you want to contribute anyway, I'm in the office. If you also want to contribute, stop by and check out if you have some things that maybe want to check out, maybe you want to contribute, buy something. All you have to do is stop by the store. I'm in the store from 10 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, giving my services throughout the community. That's at 5648 Market Street. I'm there from 10 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, giving my services to the community. And once again, like I said, let me get to the disclaimer really quick. A lot going on in the news. If you get anything out of today's show, it will be to how to protect yourself in this jungle that we live in. It's a real jungle out there, and if you don't know what's going on, and if you're not informed, you can be caught in the web. Let me read the disclaimer real quick. These top 8 stories are only documented for records and to highlight topics for those in the business of talk radio, talk media, and those who just want to stay informed. Now it's almost time to get to this top 8. We will be at the Jewish Community Center as usual, having our community 50-50 basketball outing, our tournaments. We'll be there on April 6th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. If you have a child, or if you yourself want to get involved or just get a workout in, come on out. It's $8 per player. Your team has a chance to win 50% of the proceeds. Well, it's time to get to the top 8. Today's top 8 is mainly was inspired. I had to dig up because of what's been going on in Youngstown, and the fact that the president called out on probably global national television, the UAW president of the local GM at Lordstown, and I did some digging, and not only just the ins and outs of what's been happening in America, but I had to mainly research stories that would help people be protected in this new environment, to get an understanding of what has been happening with unions and just workers, your daughters, your males. Story that leads us to story number 1, which is, why is sex such a hot topic in the United States? And this will lead us into further things, because you have to protect your kids. One thing that people in America are always focused on is they're always focused on that mighty dollar, and they start to forget about moral principles. I try to practice my own preaching as much as I can, but I'm not perfect. I fall victim too. But growing up in a household where there was all different types of things going on, we as children were subject to all types of nudity. I mean, at an early age, kids using drugs, kids getting raped. So all of this stuff is happening, and it starts to branch out as these kids grow up. They've got all this bottled up inside. Well, the reason why the headline number 1 was, why is sex such a hot topic in the United States, is because people will tell your kids as they grow up that sex sells. If you do not know that they said that butt lifts and plastic surgery has soared in the United States. It is, they said, let alone there was 313,735 boob implants done in 2018. There were also, they say that women have become so desperate that they've been having to sell themselves into the stripping business. And folks, there's a lot going on in the media today because of the fact that these top 8 stories are designed to get you to understand what the idea or the mental state or mental capacity has become, what we think back in the day, what we thought as moral principles, moral surroundings. Listen, nobody's perfect. We all have fallen victim. You can even look at, I think made it in last week, even with the Patriots owner, people who are, even the president himself, people who are big time celebrities have fallen prey to this sex topic. It's in the news. They're talking about some of these new laws about decriminalizing work for sex. And this is why I'm telling you, this is why, as I home in a little bit more on what's happening here at home and locally with GM, it'll start to get you to understand that workers need protection. Even children, we need some type of protection. And I was talking to a union rep from the steel, my buddy Dan Moore. He's become a community activist, and he's really focused on trying to get Youngstown in a better economic standing. But he was talking to me, and I was telling him about how past political officials feared that the United States would become an oligarchy or some type of a breeding ground for just corporate enterprises, just to control everything. And when you talk about people now making it, saying that we should decriminalize people for sex labor, basically saying that human trafficking and people who sell their body for sex should be allowed to do it under law. These are, if you don't, there's some documentation about this going on. It's probably in like states like California, Atlanta. They're saying that there's $1 billion industry in Atlanta alone when it comes to sex work. It brings in almost $290 million. So there's anybody in the sex business will tell you that sex is selling. We've all been victims as children, as young men. Personally, I found out through years of having uncles, family members, and people who in my own family, me myself, always having to search the web, and you get, like I said, most people get that urge to want to do something. Next thing you know, they're online, they're skimming through tons of videos of women beautiful women just offering themselves. Some women in Chicago said the only way she was only able to get over her addiction to porn was through God. So it's a real deal, and most men battle with it. All of us, most men, most women, battle with this sex craving feeling and we don't have a stable relationship. We're not in a relationship, so this problem is starting to hit a lot of circles because of the fact they're talking about defunding Planned Parenthood. People are using condoms. They're having sex. They're getting pregnant. They can't raise them. There was even a K-pop star. This is from Asia, from places like South and North Korea. Well, South Korea. I think it's Joon-young. He's arrested in sex. I hope I pronounced that right. I think it's Joon-young. I think he's involved in a sex video scandal. So this is becoming a big problem. And not only just circles, but you look at people like R. Kelly. You look at all of these Me Too things going on. Everybody has been some victim of some type of sexual conduct. It is becoming a really hot topic in America. But who do you blame? I mean, you build a website, you put all these videos on there, you make a ton of money just off of the clicks, off of the traffic. This is a big thing in America right now. They're saying that in Korea, spy cam porn, there's been 1,600 victims and 4 men arrested just under spy cam porn. And then you have 395 priests and deacons who've been accused of sexual misconduct. In all of this, you have STDs, you have all types of sexual just people just cannot. And you have to ask yourselves, are we reaching the age to where husband and wife or one partner is no more? If you talk to people who have been in relationships, they'll talk about having multiple partners. They'll talk about having multiple relationships, or some people are even having friends come over and engaging in sex with their wives. So it's amazing that you have conservatives on the battlefield right now, especially when you talk about abortion and people who are trying to get values and certain things back into not only just the lives of these kids, but these kids are growing up and they have these natural raging hormones, and it's really becoming a problem. There's a lot going on when you talk about sexual activity in America, and that's why this story has crept its way. There's been a lot of stories about sexual nature and sexual misconduct, but the fact of sex being a hot topic is staying somehow into the headlines because of the fact that it's starting to affect the makeup of not only just the child, but it's affecting professional people on the workroom floor. I said this a few shows ago about how some men are starting to, who are CEOs and corporate owners, are starting to impose dress codes. There was even an article about how Democratic women are talking about, hey, if men want to regulate our bodies, then why don't they regulate with their sperm? You know, so this sex problem is hitting headlines. And you have to ask yourself why. Why is this hitting headlines? It is happening. People having sex changes. You have all different sexual headlines making the news. All different types of just when you have people, women getting butt implants, butt lifts, and breast implants. That means that there's something wrong with it. They don't have enough confidence in their own body, and this is happening, folks. It's really happening. Over 300,000 boob implants, over 24,099 butt lifts last year in America alone. This is the real deal, and people wonder why conservatives are going crazy. This is really happening in the news. That's why I said, if you've got a daughter out there, if you've got kids and they're growing up, you got to make sure these kids are confident in their own sexuality. Because there's some freaky stuff going on. They got songs now where girls are talking about making out with other girls, and this is my girl. This is real. And little babies growing up believing that it's okay. This is where we're at in America. If you talk about Sodom and some type of sexual problems, I mean, if you don't believe it's real, it's real. You can look at the stats. You can look at all of the women. I mean, listen. There's nothing wrong with adults doing what they do, but when you start involving young children growing up, having not understanding the world, yes, these things happen. But when you talk about the fact that when they believe that it's become an everyday thing and it's okay and everything is fine and it won't affect everybody's life around them, folks, this is a real deal problem, and that's why story number one probably will gain some steam. This story, when I was just researching how some of these girls are getting kidnapped, they're put into this sex game. They're very attractive. They have nice figures, nice curves, and then once they start gaining weight, they're thrown to the wolves. They have no job. They have no way to feed themselves, folks. This is even they're even talking about how some men have gotten into it with. I mean, this is a real thing. I'm telling you, you get to the grit of the matter, to the meat of what is causing all of this, and it's just the fact that human beings are some freaky creatures. We're freaky, and we want to express our freakiness, and it like I talk about it constantly about how all of us have this hidden sexual beast inside of us, and some people have gotten with a partner and they've mixed with other partners, and next thing you know, they start beating these girls up because they start spreading diseases. They're not cleaning themselves off. This is in church circles they say it's sinning, and that's what it is. It's hardcore. The fact that people have we don't have any moral. There's a lot of moral law right now. That's why I'm constantly trying to protect myself, because I was in marriage years ago, but I've been divorced. I've been single. I've had to control, just like a lot of men right now. And then it's like there's something in the air when you get around all of this. there's just not a lot of stability right now when you talk about the American culture and what it used to be like years ago. I mean, you had a lot of sexual imbalance years ago, but now it's just out in the open. I mean, people are posting Jimmy hats on Facebook. They're sharing pictures. I mean, it's all over the web. It's big. This if you thought sex sold, it's sold out. They're making billions off just taking in little girls who didn't grow up in a stable home, putting them on the market, and then they're talking about legalizing it. Folks, that's story number one. If you want to contribute, you're in the meeting with me, Brian West, where it's my supreme duty to go through the top 8 headlines, developing news stories that made it throughout the week. And that was story number one. Why is sex such a hot topic in the United States? It's becoming bigger and bigger. And if you thought it was is not, if you thought Brazil could somehow give your child, folks, this is real. Brazil has made a boom. They're talking about a booming business just off butt lifts alone, and girls are getting implants. And folks, this is reality. If you want to contribute anyway, you're in the media with me, Brian Westward. It's my supreme duty every week to give you the top 8 headlines, developing news stories. If you want to contribute anyway, all you have to do is go to the website, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, methodinc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or just sponsor a program. That's METHOD, the number 8, INC.com. Let's get to story number 2. Prison life. Life in, life out, and why have so many people have had to resort to the underworld, the high cost of justice. Folks, prison life is real. You know, there was some headlines that surfaced about how women's prisons are just as bad as male prisons. And it was talking about pregnancies inside of these prisons. And then you talk about one thing that the United States justice system cannot figure out is how are so many people becoming incarcerated? Why are so many people breaking the law? And how do we fix a broken justice system? This is not just a problem when you talk about African Americans. This is a problem with minorities. It's a problem. Then there's talk about how some police forces, some justice systems have been infiltrated with white supremacists and other type of groups. And they talk about groups inside of prisons. They have gangs, and they are talking about how they want to dethrone the police. Folks, this is an all-out real war that goes on that's not really talked about every day. When you talk about what happens inside of these inner cities and how these women or how these men become incarcerated, it's a real thing. And how some people get trapped inside of the underworld. They get trapped in the drug life. They get trapped in the prostitution life. And some of them don't know any other way of living. Some of them, you got to think, you take away 10 years of a man's life, that's 10 years of a culture that he doesn't know about. The workforce, the education, the fact that these people are, they're even talking about how some prison systems are designed in just a brand new slavery. Folks, this is the real deal. Prison, when people get out of prison, some of them say they have nothing. They don't know what to do. They don't have any life. They've served their time. They're still judged by the public. They've served their time, and this is becoming a really bad problem. Some of the headlines that surface is even the conditions of the prisons. Oklahoma sheriff and staff have quit over unsafe. They've basically left the facility. They're talking about mold. They're talking about snakes in the building. Folks, this is a reality. And the fact that taxpayer dollars are going to incarceration. Some people say it's a conspiracy that when you talk about the change in the music industry, some people say that the music industry was designed to populate jails by the violence, the hardcore violence. But when you see the thing, if you want to dissect this issue, and this is why story number 2 probably will gain some steam, and probably why it's already created some talk or some buzz, is because if you want to actually look at when you look at these patterns of people popping up in the news, like you look at the Kaepernicks, you look at the way people present stories and the attention on police brutality, and there was a book that I was reading, it was about a I can't remember the name of it, but it was about how this young child, he was living with his parents, and his mother and father were in an abusive relationship. So this kid had no choice. He said he had no choice, but he shot his father, shot him point blank range in the head. Next thing you know, he was inside of the prison system. He talked about the what happened, and then the lawyer who was serving him talked about how when he went inside these communities, how they even treated him with some type of bias because of the fact of his race, and the fact just of how people they view other people. So this story, when you talk about prison life in and out, and the prison system, the justice system in general, it's really happening. There's some stories that surface about how the cameras now that police are now having. There was a video showing how an officer was punching a woman on St. Patrick's Day. It was a riot. So people are getting this stuff on video, and it's fueling the rage, but it's really being a hindrance on the Justice Department because people are blaming them for all the problems. No, it's just the American culture has become so grimy. It's become so filthy. It's filthy right now out there. It's a jungle. It really is, and this is what's happening. There even a story that surfaced about a woman who shot herself in the head while she was handcuffed. I guess it was a normal traffic stop. She killed herself because she didn't want to be here. Folks, people have become the lifestyle of most Americans, and you want to, and most people who are in political positions, most conservatives, most people who are analyzing things, they want to know, how did this happen? Did it happen overnight? What was the process of just the standard of living for for just people? And when you talk about the school systems and how the parents are not raising the children, folks, somebody took their eyes off of the simple ways of living and put their eyes mostly on making money, and they forgot about the simple process of human thinking. And it's reality. They say that incarcerated women have 753 live births. They have 46 miscarriages, and some of them have stillbirths, about 4 of them. And there's probably about 11 abortions, but the number is probably higher than that if you look on a global scale. Folks, when you talk about this story in the life of people in prison, and when they get out, how some of them can't find a job, and how if you take a kid who has been consuming products and weed and drugs his entire life, thinking it's okay, how do you get them to stop, folks? This is a homeland security problem. This is a reality, and the fact that you have terrorists within your own community. And they don't know what to do. So this is, like I said, story number 2 probably will continue to gain some steam. It's been trickling in and out of the news, but when you talk about the prison life, and when they get free and they get out of jail, and the fact that they have no life, this is a reality that's starting to set in, and it's starting to take center stage because of the fact that there's not enough tax money to keep putting people in jail, keeping them through the same routine every time. It's not enough. Like I said, if you want to contribute, you're in the meeting with me, Brian West. Whereas my supreme duty every week, we're almost at the halfway point to give you the top 8 headlines developing news stories that made you throughout the week. I'm here for you. Like I said, this is good for you. Vitamin news, vitamins, staying informed, the vitamins that you need for your brain. Tickle that progress meter to get you going, to get you some energy, some type of focus, some type of thinking. Folks, if you're trying to reach perfection, the best way to do it is by staying informed and staying educated, reading, up in your game, trying to do better things, bettering yourself. But you can't do it without being informed. You have to know what's going on around you. You have to understand how the rules of the things work, and people will take advantage of you. I haven't even gotten to one of the top 2 stories, but we're headed there. If you want to contribute anyway, all you have to do is visit METHOD, the number 8, INC.com. All you have to do is buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or you just sponsor a program. You're in the meeting with me, Brian West. Let's get to story number 3. Story number 3: how the scamming business works, and why do they do it? I was at John Eagle. I was at the supermarket. Gave him a little bit of a shout out there. I was at the supermarket and I ran into a bank teller, and she was just telling me, she was talking to me. She said, she said people often think that scam artists are like some young kid or somebody who's broke, but she said these are the people who are actually living in mansions, big mansions. And she said most of them are wealthy people. And this is what people don't seem to realize. You ask yourself, who is in charge of these emails, these robocalls I get? Or why is it that when I put my information inside of an app or some type of computer game, I start getting all these phone calls? And you have to ask yourself these questions, especially when you start talking about the people, like older people, the older generation. And why do scam artists constantly prey on the weak? Folks, this is becoming a culture. It's becoming a global culture inside of America, where people will get the American dollar and they will spend it over a season. It will be twice as much in their own country. If you don't understand that these scam artists are very smart people, you get an email, it tells you you've inherited thousands of dollars. This is becoming a primetime story because of the fact that greed is out there. Not everybody is raised to have a conscience like some people. I have a very high conscience rate. I can't even touch something without feeling like I've done something wrong. But folks, some people just do not have a conscience and they don't care about other people. Some people actually get a kick out of scamming people. You look at this what's going on in Washington right now. Some people think that I'm no discredit to the Republican Party, no discredit to the Democrats, but some people feel that we put scam artists in the White House. Some people we feel that we put con artists in Washington. But this is when people learn the recipe for scamming people, they utilize it. And it's a real deal thing that happens. People get over on people, and they learn the art of how to do it, and then they replicate it. There's been people coming into town promising fancy jobs, getting all this money, and then they skip town. Folks, this is a real deal issue that we face every day, and it's becoming a big problem within the United States. You have drug dealers that are scammers. I mean, there are so many different types of scam artists out there. They will steal your identity. They have networks. They have people who come in, they understand the system, they know the rules. Some of them get involved with Congress, run for office. Folks, this is a real deal. And some of them are often misidentified. Some of them are the closest people to you. Some of them are your friends. Some of them, nobody knows how these people weasel their way in. You can even talk to a lot of women who have fathers or children. They will say that they can't get rid of some men. Some men have come into their life. Folks, when you talk about scam artists in the United States, this is a real big problem. Some guys get with a girl who may have some type of benefits. They may weasel their way in, start staying with the girl, and then next thing you know, he's living off of child support with her. Folks, this is a real big thing. And when you talk about American policy, and if you want to take it to the immigration issues on why some people are crossing the border. We're going to get to that story in a second. But that's story number 3, how the scamming business works and why do they do it? I mean, how do you get satisfaction? And some people get filthy rich off of credit cards. So I guess if you want to know how to identify it, it's plain and simple. If you get an email or some type of if it looks fishy, if it looks weird, and it draws you. Some of these people, when they attract people who don't have a lot of money, they attract them by promising them big bills, big money, and they get drawn in. Their psyche starts to fold up, and their normal way of living starts to actually believe that this. I mean, when I was younger, I recall on the show before in the past about how when I was younger, how I ended up involved in one of these. I got a phishing email saying I inherited this. I was brand new. This was when computers were freshly new, and I got this email saying I inherited this money. I remember we were financially, we were in a tight spot. I just got out of the military. I couldn't find a good job, and this is how people get sucked into these scam artists, and this is how people get tons of credit cards. They can't pay the bills. Next thing you know, one bill is due. They're getting called by a collector. threatening, and the next thing they're saying they're going to sue them. They get frightened. They see this email. This email gives them hope. They have their little bit of money left. They think they're going to double it just by scam artists, folks. This is a real story, and it's been creeping its way in and out of the news. But like I said, you'll probably hear scam stories or shows that specialize in stuff like this. But other than that, if it's not affecting the masses, you may just hear a few stories. Let's get to story number 4. If you want to contribute anyway, you're in the media with me, Brian West, where it is my supreme duty to give you the top 8 headlines developing news stories that made it throughout the week. If you want to be a part of the show or help out in any way, all you have to do is visit our website where we post shows, past shows. We have other types of material on the website. All you have to do is visit the website by buying something, click on something, watching something, or just read something. That's www.method8inc.com. Lots of books. You could go there, watch comedy shows. If you want to see me act like a complete nut, you go there and see that. A lot of things that we've done within the community, inside the community, local actors, local talent, put their skills on display. So if you want to be a part of it or contribute anyway, all you have to do is visit the website or buy something at www.method8inc.com, method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or just sponsor a program. Story number 4. Race, the border, and power. What's at stake? People are wondering about this. There's been I've said it myself. They have too many racial stories circulating in the media. Just a lot of racial stories, and a lot of politicians are pulling the race card. And you see a lot of it's not just about African Americans and whites. You talk about Hispanics. I mean, there's just people are pulling Asians. I mean, the country is so diverse that it's really causing a lot of instability when you have in the melting pot, because of the fact that even some of like Caucasian white brothers are starting to feel the effects of all of this racial talk. Some people, they're like, why does it always have to be about race? Why can't I just be myself? And it's really affecting a lot of people inside of the country. It's affecting the unity that we have in this country. You hear, when you talk about politicians and it's political talk, the reality is that you have citizens and you have politicians. People don't want to be, we don't want to be duped, and we don't want to be just treat it like pawns. This is a serious game when you talk about a world, a globe here. This is a serious game, and it's just, and then you have like these sides, people taking these sides, and some people wondering like, why is it that you have a president of the White House who cannot do any wrong, and you have all these people going through problems, having to suffer, looking for jobs, and they're putting labels, and the Democratic Party is constantly trying to get votes from, promising things. People just, when you really boil it down to, people just need shelter. You have, especially when you talk about this border wall, there's been children that have been separated from their families. They're seeking asylum, and they're really seeking asylum. They're really seeking help from America because their government is just terrible. You go to Mexico, you go to other countries, neighboring countries. They don't. Do you see people from Canada migrating? It's just the fact that their government is just, and then they're getting misunderstood. Their children they're trying to get across, and it's been creating a problem within the system. And then you have these politicians who have just been basically just taking advantage of just minorities, the minority vote, and you have people just helpless. Though you talk, even when you talk about race, you look at the fact that they're bringing reparations back into the news, and they're just doing whatever they can to get these votes, and minorities are struggling, folks. They're really struggling, and if you don't understand what it's like, you go inside some of these neighborhoods where they don't have a lot of education, the property values are just terrible. You move into the neighborhoods, and then you have the fact that they don't feel like the system is working for them. And then they go out, they try to find a job, they don't folks, this is a reality. You look at the school systems, how the school systems have been affected, how some of these kids have just, when you talk about these issues, these are some really, and I'm starting to see, this is why I bumped up to number 4, because it's starting to create a lot of attention inside of the news. And they're talking about how a lot of these high high officials just don't know what it's like on the ground when you talk about inside of these inner communities that do not have a lot of wealth. They're talking about how some of these officials are using private emails to conduct business, how some of these people are using public office to gain wealth, to gain more power, to gain more. I mean, it's just saying that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. But if the poor does not understand how the rules are engaged, I was even reading some stuff about the antitrust laws that were talking about, how they were talking about big businesses and big corporations. And folks, this is real. You know, these guys get into the oil business. You have like the Rockefellers. Some of these guys, they get into the business of and some of the people who are, there's a lot of people who are left behind. Just a lot of wealthy. And there's even some stories that were talking about cotton, how the cotton business got the United States rich, and the slaves didn't get any profit off of it. Free labor, folks. These stories are surfacing and they're gaining steam because of the fact that people are watching it, people are paying attention, because they're starting to see that it involves them. It involves them, and this will probably be the breaking point on if we break or keep going as a nation, because of the fact that there's just been so many things done in the past that hasn't surfaced. People haven't been talking about it, but now people are finding a voice. I was just reading tons of stories about how even people are wondering about the relationship between the president and North Korea's leader. President saying that he likes him. He's going to undo some of the sanctions. He's going to end some of the sanctions because he likes a dictator, Kim Jong-un. And it is, you listen to some of his citizens, they don't understand this. They don't understand how people who leaders do wrong things, and the next thing you know, they're riding around in limos, waving, national TV, they become so famous. Then the people inside the system think that it's the right way to live, the right way to do things. Folks, this is taking center stage. You are starting to see a bitter separation between those in power, the working class, the poor, the citizens of every country, and they're blaming their governments. They don't understand how these people get in office. They start running the tables. Nobody wins. And people start suffering. They start promising growth, economics, and up. Folks, this is, like I said, these stories are taken. Story number 4, race, the border, power, what's at stake. Folks, this isn't about votes. This is about what is actually happening within governing bodies. Why is Mexico not taking care of its citizens? Why do they constantly, why can't, this is a real deal problem. And they're blaming it on the types of governments, socialist governments. Folks, let's get to story number 5. If you want to contribute anyway, you're in the meeting with me, Brian West, where it's my supreme duty to give you the top 8 headlines developing news stories that made it throughout the week. If you want to contribute anywhere or be a big of help or big service, I have to go through 250 stories a week, probably over more than that. Every day I have to navigate the news just for you so I can get prepared for this Sunday. But if you want to be a part of it, if you want to help out anyway, all you have to do is go to the website, buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or just sponsor a program. Very cheap, not expensive at all. Every little bit counts. The budget every year goes back into the community. I tried to spend it. I mean, like I said, it's a small S corporation, small business corporation, and it's just for I was retired. I got injured on active duty, so I was able to retire, and I've been doing this ever since. And it's been keeping me active as a veteran. I've been staying in shape, trying to still have a lot of nasal problems, but I keep myself going just for you, so you can stay informed. And if you want to contribute anyway, that's METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, Method80.com. Story number 5, the perfect war. The world knows how wars begin, so why can't the world stop them? Folks, if you haven't been keeping an eye on the news, or if you haven't been actually keeping an eye on what's actually been happening, the world now has more information on how wars begin and how they start. And if you been keeping an eye on groups like ISIL, you've been keeping an eye on they're talking about white supremacist groups. They're talking about groups that emerge, MS-13 gang members, groups that emerge, and how they're able to gain followers, and you may have groups that are losing at something, they may gain a lot of support. Even politicians, how they're able to gain so much support. Like you may have a politician who's run off socialist ideas, They may be able to gain tons of followers, get tons of, but people are starting to find out that this is how wars begin. And it starts just by your own vote, by your own decisions to get involved, and how you start to relate to these figures, and it's creating big news because of the fact, like you just had the problem in New Zealand where the guy shot up the Muslims, and he was throwing up the OK sign. Some said it was a white supremacist sign, but some of these groups are gaining followers and they recruit online, but the thing is you have other groups who bite off these stories and they start to get other people involved. Next thing you know, there's riots and people are getting killed without understanding what's actually happening. Then we have, like in the United States, where you had the Confederate States, people talk about the statues and things like that. But the thing is that what the majority of things that starts wars is what we see happening like in the United States, where there's people constantly breaking the laws. When somebody has more than you, and when you want it and you do it in the illegal way. So, and then you have the battles between, usually how civil wars start is when one group is declining and another group. So people are watching these trends, and that's why I've tried to stay in the middle so much. They were talking about Egypt. Egypt is a prime example. They were also talking about how this Catholic priest, he was stabbed during a televised mass in Canada. So when people are devoted to a country, devoted to a religion, a faith, and then next thing you know, things start to turn for the worse, like corruption. It usually starts war. They were talking about why do so many Egyptian statues have their nose broken? And you can find tons of material on this. It could be a theory, it could be an assumption, but some people, they usually refer to the Bible. Some people believe that it was when they exit out of Egypt that God did it, or some people just believe it was a part of war. There's so many different just different ideas on why this happened. But if you look at the end of every civilization, you will find out that usually there were people who were either enslaved, who rebelled. But right now you may see it, especially when you talk about, as I'm getting closer and closer to the top stories, when we talk about how GM, like when you look at the wealth gap. And this is usually how things start happening and how things start getting shook up, like banning weapons, mass shootings. They did in fact, and then you got to look at, you had 59 gravestones that were vandalized at a Massachusetts Jewish cemetery. So this is when you look at how these things start happening and start surfacing, or like why are there so many Islamic groups that are engaging in certain activities or certain territory activities. People are starting to see on a global scale how these things surface, how they start to gain people's attention. And now you have what they have, like people are understanding that the right and the left in the United States, and they're starting to understand the battle that goes on in the political arena, and how these politicians are able to gather up support. They understand this. So the question is now how do they mediate, get in between, and prevent people from losing their lives? Like you had all those innocent people who've lost their lives just because of the fact that somebody wanted to get their point across. Or banning guns. Will this actually stop the infiltration of those who actually want to get a point across? So folks, you're starting to see it take center stage, and that's why story number 5, bump this web to number 5, is how wars are just generated, how they surface. And this is why mediators are so important when you have stuff like, diplomats, foreign policy, when you put somebody in office who is making decisions. This is why they have to understand that everything they say is being watched. Other dictators, other people who want to gain clout within a system, they're watching these leaders, they're watching their styles, it's just like a boxing match. They're looking at these like they're looking at what they can get out of these deals. And this is what's happening, folks. And that's why story number 4 is the perfect war. The world knows how wars begin, so how can they stop them from happening? And you're starting to see how wars begin. Mass religious groups calling other religious groups out. So let's get to the top 3 stories that made it to the media this week. Like I said, if you want to contribute in any way, you can visit www.methodinc.com, methodinc.com, and all you have to do is buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. You're the media, and it'll be Brown West, where it's my duty to give you the top 8 headlines developing news stories that made it throughout the week. Story number 6, right to work states, reparations, and labor unions taking center stage. Folks, yes, there is actually talk. There's actually been some surface about people actually considering giving the descendants of slaves some type of reparations. And then the fact that you have right to work states and labor unions battling it out. Again, this story surfaced when the president put the GM UAW president on the spot, and he had talked about some things. Do you know that in right to work states they have a 75% increase in economic growth, but right to work states salaries are lower. Their facilities are more prone to having fatalities because you don't have any unions around protecting these workers. If I encourage workers, if you're a working man, to understand why places have to be unionized and the big deal that is really going on. There is a real battle going on in the Republican and Democratic aisles, or just people just plainly stuck in the middle, where there is a problem with working. And the fact, if you want to do more research, there's something on the website. It was a podcast about NPR. They were talking about antitrust rules in America and how this surfaced. It talks about in the article about how big tech companies had gotten so big that they were too big to fail. And they're talking about how these companies come in, they get huge, tons of money, gobbling up all the business. They're also providing some business, but when they leave or they fail, it becomes catastrophic. And then you have also this universal basic income thing talking about, and then they're bringing the. All I'm saying is, if you reflect back to history and all of this goop law of understanding universal basic income, right to work states, unions, and where this is all coming from, it all centers around cheap labor. You talk about slavery, how they was able to get the cotton, and all the banks benefited off of this. People started getting into the oil businesses. They started drilling, finding new ways to get oil from underground. Folks, all I'm saying, this is my advice to you, especially as you see what is happening locally inside of Northeast Ohio, where you have a company like GM, and they're talking about, the sales of the crews were down, but they're talking about rebuilding an electric car. They're talking about spending almost 300 million, I believe 300 million on the technology. So they have the money, but they just decided just to desert, and the plan is there. It's wasted money. So it's there. They just decide just to place these workers in other places. Now the union reps are under the spotlight, getting mass criticism. It's when corporations make these decisions. That's why it's always important that union members educate their members, get them on the board. They should have some type of a stock inside of these companies, so you can balance out the power. When companies get too big like that, this has been going on for centuries in the United States. It has become such a big problem. And it's taken center stage right here in Northeast Ohio. How do you get these jobs back? If the union members, if they know how to build cars, they know how to get these parts, order them, they should have had stocks within these corporations, and they should have had a backup plan. You have all these people's lives in jeopardy. They've invested in the community, they have homes, and all of a sudden that's $3 billion, probably tons of money that will leave this area. Folks, this is real deal stuff. Let's get to the top 2 stories that made it to the media this week. We're almost at the end of the show. If you want to contribute anyway, if you want to help me out, all you have to do is visit methodinc.com, buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or just sponsor a program. I go through over tons of stories every week, watching videos, tons of stuff, just to keep you informed so you can understand what's actually happening in the news. So that's methodinc.com, methodinc.com. We're at the top 2 stories that made it to the media this week. Story number 7. The education issue and why many students are raising their hands. Years ago, they had where predominantly minority students were starting to get involved, and they started to realize that they needed more rights on campus. And we talk about when you talk about like the Parkland school shooting and the fact that there was a girl who committed suicide. She was overwhelmed. And you talk about how Harvard University have been sued for allegedly profiting from what I guess believed to be early photos of American slaves. Folks, these universities are going through a lot, and you just saw it where it surfaced a few weeks ago, where they were talking about how some big time celebrities, wealthy people, were actually getting their bribing colleges to get their kids in it. Folks, this education thing is a big thing. You talk about student loan debt and the fact that lots of Americans have tons of student loan debt that has to be paid. Some people are in forgiveness programs who have worked for the public. But when you talk about the education issue and why many students are starting to raise their hands, they're starting to get the picture. They're keeping themselves informed. Some people just do not want to get caught in the debt web. But story number 7 probably will. It's in the top 2 because of the problem that it's causing. When you talk about lack of education or a bad education system, it can destroy the future, because we need to have people who are reading books, being educated, understanding vocabulary, supreme vocabulary, reading. If the education system is devalued or degraded in this country, if people just become just not educated at all, you will see the effects years from now. Let's get to story number 8, the top stories that made it in. If you want to contribute any way, I can do is visit METHOD, the number 8 INC.com, method80.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. That's METHOD, the number 8 INC.com, method80.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or just sponsor a program. That's how you can help me out. Every cent goes back into the budget to help out the community. Story number 8, the last story, the top story that made it to the media. How a simple business machine changed America. How will Americans or humans outperform the computer? Folks, there's some things that happened at Tesla where they're trying to track down, I guess, one of their employees who stole some of their self-driving technology and was given it to the Chinese. I spoke about GM and how they were investing $300 million into a new American-made electric car. Folks, there was also some stuff when you talk about tech. Hundreds of hotel guests were secretly filmed and live streamed online. Yes. Sharon Osbourne has been slamming young people for having very bad social skills due to technology. Bill Gates compares artificial intelligence to nuclear weapons. Companies that have gotten too big, and what the government can do to help, or how can the government interfere or change all this. Folks, I talked about the antitrust some laws that went into effect years ago when the government had to just intervene with these big companies. And I think what people are talking about, maybe not understanding, is that the economy may be booming, but who is benefiting from this economy? Are the middle class getting more money in their pocket? Are the poor getting less poor? When people are getting jobs, are they getting good jobs? Or when you talk about immigration, are immigrants who are seeking asylum being treated fairly? Are they getting a understanding of how this thing works? Are they giving us information? Are people on the ground doing research, trying to figure out why are they migrating why are they trying to get into the country? Folks, this is a reality, and these are real deal stories that made it to the media this week. Some local stories that made it in. Trump's tweet towards the UAW and GM Lordstown plant had no effect on executive decisions. The plant is still considering closing. Ohio cuts funding for Planned Parenthood. Like I said, there's a lot going on in the news. And when you talk about jobs, unions, I encourage you to do your research, especially when you talk about your daughters, your children, being out there, understanding that there are rules and laws that are being passed, and people are trying to get things by in Congress. They're starting to influence politicians. They're starting to influence lobbyists. I mean, they're out there, and they're able to get. When you talk about laws, just judicial, I mean, just all over the place, you're starting to see the effects. Do we need unions in this new environment? I say yes. I say union membership should be be up. It is well worth it when you have to be represented by people who understand the game. Should unions be encouraging buybacks? Should they be influencing law? Yes, workers need rights. It's a proven fact that if workers do not have rights, you see what's happening. These companies come in, they start soaking up everything. They get involved, deeply rooted in communities, and then when they decide to skip town, things start falling apart. People can't buy houses, income, people start killing themselves. Folks, this is a real problem in America. When you get that good job, that good $20 an hour job, and you lose it, it could be catastrophic because you got credit cards. You see what happened with the federal shutdown. Folks, people are living paycheck to paycheck. There has to be some type of balancing of power. That's why the Constitution is written the way it is. You can't have too many coins in one pot, or it'll fall apart. That's why I say you have to stay informed, folks. This is what's happening on a scale. And if you see it happening in Northeast Ohio and you don't understand what's happening, folks, they're moving people to different plants. They're investing in different plants, but they're not investing in the people who are working. They've put a legacy in this community. And some people are saying it's okay for them to leave because of the business model, but we're looking at morality here. The morality of the area. People were depending on them for businesses, local businesses. So how do we move on? How do we gain? You have to get smarter. People have to start opening up businesses. I want to thank you so much for tuning into the media this week with me, Brian West. I wish you the best of luck this week. Have a good week, everybody. I am out going to enjoy this 50-degree weather. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for tuning to the media with me, Brian West. I'm gone.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The mediator